arrived in the town of Wrightwood, we had a decision to make. Because of a fire there, it was a closure on Mount Baden-Powell, which was a highlight of the desert section, and we were all bummed that we were going to miss it, but we had to skip about 34 miles of it. The other option was we could have done a road walk, which would have been a 24-mile road walk on a mountain, windy road with no shoulder, which we had decided just wasn't something we wanted to put our lives at risk for. So we got to ride around it, but it was interesting. I didn't have to make this decision alone because I've made a lot of friends on the trail, and this has been one of the biggest surprises of this trail for me is that, particularly this year, I didn't think there'd be as much of a social thing, but there is, and I want to introduce you to some of them. So you've seen these two before. On the right is McQueen, and on the left is Pampadou, his wife. The other three I just met that morning, but you had met McQueen and Pampadou many times. I met them on the first day and have been hiking on and off with them ever since. Then there's Spite and Crush. They're a couple. They've been together since they were 14. That's Crush there. Spite doesn't like to be photographed, but she let me photograph her using her luxury item, which I didn't even know what it was, but it's some sort of eyelash curler, and I just thought it was hilarious. She let me take that photo, but she really doesn't like to be photographed otherwise. And then there's Poppy and Orange Man, or O-Man. And Poppy there on the left, he is just retired from the Army as Lieutenant Colonel. And Orange Man has been retired, I guess, about 5 or 6 years. He was a project manager up at Corning in upstate New York. And he's been doing adventures ever since. But Poppy I met on day 1, and we've pretty much been hiking together ever since. And then Orange Man I met, I think, on day 3. And didn't hike with him the first 2 weeks or so, but after Idlewild, the three of us have pretty much been together, and it's been great. You know, we decide where we're going to hike or what town we're going to go into, and we pretty much do what we want independently during the day. We may see each other at lunch or breaks, but then in the evening we have lunch, dinner together, or, you know, that sort of thing, and we can make decisions together, which has been really helpful because there's so many moving pieces to this trail. There's so many fire closures and towns that you have to get into that are 20, 30 miles away. And like this, right now we're going through, this is the fire closure over Mount Baden-Powell, and we're pretty disappointed that we had to miss it, but this guy named Bruce, who is a trail angel, was amazing. He got us around it, got us to 3 points, and wouldn't accept a dime from us. And it's just kind of, he's a perfect example of kind of what this trail has so much of, which is just amazing generosity.
See it? See the rattle? See his tongue? He's looking at us.
Yeah, dude, dog wouldn't.
He's all coiled up there.
Yeah, he is coiled and ready to strike.
Yeah, hey dude, he can get you right now.
He cannot get me this far back.
Yes, he can.
All right, well then back up.
Yeah, it's adrenaline to come up.
After the Rattlesnake Encounter, we ended up at Vasquez Rocks, which is a famous rock formation outside of Agua Dulce, which has been used in television shows and movies for decades. It was used in the original Star Trek, as well as Planet of the Apes and a number of westerns and whatnot. And you can see why. I mean, it has kind of an otherworldly feel to it. It's stunningly beautiful, and we really enjoyed ourselves here. This is my favorite rock formation here, and this is the one you see in most movies, and really enjoyed walking through there. After Vasquez Rocks, it's a quick walk over to what was formerly known, well, I guess it's still known as Hiker Heaven. This is the Softly's home, which they, for decades, opened up to hikers all summer long. And some nights they would have over 50 hikers camped out in their yard. That's Donna Softly right there. She is a legendary trail angel, and she has lost none of her magic. She treated us so well. 2 years ago, they decided that they couldn't keep doing it. They wanted to retire, so they don't open up their yard to hikers anymore, but they still want to help hikers. So what they've done is opened up their guest house for $150 a night on Airbnb. You can rent it, and it sleeps up to 6, so it's about $25 a person, which is less than you would pay at most hostels, and it's amazing. She has robes and Q-tips, and she has a scale. It's like everything a hiker could possibly want. Epsom salt so you can do a bath. It was amazing. And they also have this outdoor barbecue, and it was so great because Spite and Crush, who had been off trail for a couple of weeks to heal Spite's foot, brought us dinner, and we just had an amazing time. And Oman's son and his fiance came up from LA. We just had a wonderful time, and Donna Softly just allowed all of this to happen, and it was beautiful. We were so grateful to have had that experience. But soon enough, we had to get back on trail, and Donna took us down to the Maid Road, which is part of the PCT, and then we did our first night hike into the desert. So it is going to be a record hot day today. It's day 31, I believe. Maybe it's 32. But it's going to get up to about 100 today. So everybody is night hiked a little bit last night like we did. And now was up at like 5 to kind of get as much as we can get in before the heat of the day. So about 10 or 11 o'clock, I'm going to have to just break and find shade and chill out for 5 hours or 6 hours and then start hiking again, probably around 4 or 5. So that's kind of the place we're in now. I think the rest of the desert until we get to Kennedy Meadows is going to be similar. So it should be interesting. arrived at a place called Hikertown, which is at the beginning of the LA Aqueduct section of the PCT, which is known to be a really difficult and exposed part. And this guy has created this little town out of stage props from Hollywood, which he has collected over the years, which is really interesting little town. But when we arrived, it was like 105, and we had to get out of there. And Spite and Crush were so kind. They came up from LA and picked us up and took us to a hotel to escape the heat. The next afternoon, Spite and Crush took us back to Hikertown, where a thru hiker named Treebeard had organized an event to go out into the desert. It was a celebration of having accomplished what we had all accomplished, but it was also a way to go into the most fearful and difficult part of the desert section as a group, so that we didn't have to do it alone. And he gave this wonderful speech where we were celebrating what we accomplished and celebrating some birthdays and other things, but there was a message underneath it, and the message was that we don't have to be alone. And this is one of those things that the PCT is teaching me. I've always been independent, and I've always wanted to do everything by myself. And I think one of the great lessons that this trail is teaching me is that I don't have to do everything alone. None of us do. None of us need to go into the desert alone.
Wherever you're going, wherever you're